They say the worst part about betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies. It's a cliché, I know. But when you're standing in the middle of your perfectly decorated living room, holding a piece of glass and metal that just shattered your entire reality, clichés suddenly feel like profound prophecies. My name is Mark. I'm 34 years old, and for 7 years I was married to a woman I thought was my soulmate. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah was radiant. She was a marketing director, driven, charismatic, the kind of woman who commanded a room just by walking into it. I'm a software architect. I build systems, find bugs, ensure stability. I thought we were the perfect balance. She was the storm, and I was the anchor. We had it all. The beautiful house in a quiet suburb of Seattle, a golden retriever named Cooper, matching 401ks, and plans to start trying for a baby by the end of the year. If you looked at our Instagram, we were the couple everyone else hated. But social media is a highlight reel, and I was about to see the raw footage. It didn't start with a strange perfume or a lipstick stain on a collar. Real life isn't a noir movie. It started with subtle, almost imperceptible shifts in her baseline behavior. I analyze patterns for a living, and Sarah's pattern was changing. First, it was her phone. Sarah always used to leave her phone anywhere, on the kitchen counter, on the sofa, in the bathroom. Suddenly, it became her shadow. If she went to grab a glass of water, the phone went with her. It was placed face down on the nightstand. When I casually asked her to look up a recipe on it while my hands were covered in flour, she hesitated for a fraction of a second, unlocked it, closed an app, and only then handed it to me. Then came the work emergencies. She started getting promoted, which meant more responsibility, or so she said. A new vice president had joined her firm, a guy named Marcus, mid-40s, divorced, a real visionary, according to Sarah. Suddenly, there were late dinner meetings, weekend strategy retreats, and a sudden intense interest in her wardrobe. She bought new lingerie that she never wore for me. When I brought up my concerns, she deployed the classic gaslighting maneuvers. Are you seriously jealous of my career, Mark? You know how important this promotion is to me. You're being insecure. She was good. She almost had me convinced I was the problem. Almost. The truth didn't come out through a grand confrontation. It came out because of an old, neglected piece of tech. We had an old first-generation iPad Pro that we used mostly as a smart home hub in the kitchen. Sarah hadn't actively used it in years, but Apple's ecosystem is a funny thing. After a major iOS update, the iPad prompted a resync with her iCloud. She wasn't home. I just tapped continue to get past the setup screen so I could turn on the patio lights. Then, the iMessage app populated. A notification popped down from an unsaved number. The preview read, "Still thinking about the hotel shower. Can't wait for Thursday." My blood turned to ice. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the screen. I opened the app. It wasn't just an affair. It was a secondary life. The messages between her and Marcus went back 8 months. It was everything. Photos, complaints about me, jokes about how clueless I was, detailed logistics of where they were hooking up while she was supposedly at industry conferences. She told him I was emotionally distant. She told him we hadn't slept together in months, a blatant lie. I read a message where she used the vacation fund I had been saving up for our anniversary to buy him a Rolex for his birthday. I sat on the kitchen floor for 3 hours. I didn't cry. The pain was so absolute, so complete, that it bypassed tears and went straight to a cold, vibrating numbness. When I finally stood up, the husband who loved Sarah was dead. What was left was the architect, and I was going to engineer her demolition. If you take one piece of advice from this story, let it be this. If you find out your spouse is cheating, do not confront them immediately. Do not scream. Do not break things. You smile, you nod, and you go to war quietly. I had an advantage. She didn't know I knew. The next day, I took a sick day from work and went to the best, most ruthless divorce attorney in Seattle. She cost $500 an hour, and she was worth every penny. I laid out the iPad evidence. Washington is a no-fault divorce state, meaning the cheating didn't legally matter for the split of assets. But my lawyer, Evelyn, smiled and said, "It doesn't matter for the divorce, but it matters for the negotiation, especially since he's her boss." For the next 2 months, I lived a waking nightmare. I cooked her dinner. I kissed her cheek. I asked about her day. Every "I love you" felt like swallowing broken glass, but I swallowed it down. Behind the scenes, I was busy. I untangled our finances. I legally and quietly separated my inheritance into a private trust. I took photos of all high-value items in the house. I forwarded every single message, photo, and calendar invite from that iPad to an encrypted drive. I also hired a private investigator. I didn't need him to prove the affair. I had that. I needed him to document the spending. I needed proof that marital funds were being used to conduct the affair. The PI got me photos of them at luxury hotels, timestamps, and restaurant receipts. I was building a nuke. I just needed the right place to drop it. The perfect opportunity presented itself. Sarah's 32nd birthday was approaching. She had been dropping hints for months that she wanted a milestone celebration. She wanted a large dinner party at an exclusive, ridiculously expensive waterfront restaurant. She invited her parents, my parents, our closest friends, and, in a display of sheer, unadulterated audacity, she invited her mentors from work, including Marcus and his wife, Helen. Yes, she invited her affair partner and his unsuspecting wife to her birthday dinner, expecting me to pick up the tab. When I saw the guest list, I didn't get mad. I actually laughed. It was the hubris that did it. She felt so untouchable, so incredibly smart, that she wanted to play out her little drama right in front of everyone. I told her I would handle all the arrangements. I booked the private dining room. I ordered the $200 bottles of wine. I told her I had a very special, personalized gift planned for the end of the night. I spent the week before the dinner finalizing the paperwork with Evelyn. The divorce papers were drafted. I also drafted a very specific email. The night of the dinner, Sarah looked stunning. She wore a dress I bought her, smiling for the cameras, playing the perfect wife. Marcus sat across the table, playing the benevolent boss, his arm around his wife, Helen. We ate, we drank, people gave toasts. Sarah's father talked about what a wonderful husband I was. I just smiled and raised my glass. When the dessert was cleared, it was my turn. I stood up and tapped my glass. The room fell silent. "I want to thank you all for coming," I started, looking directly at Sarah. "We are here to celebrate Sarah, a woman of many talents, a woman who works incredibly hard. Sometimes she works late into the night. Sometimes she works in luxury hotel rooms on Tuesday afternoons." The smile on Sarah's face froze, just a microscopic twitch of the eye. Marcus shifted in his chair. "I told you I had a special gift," I continued.
I reached under the table and pulled out a stack of thick, black-bound folders. I didn't hand them out to everyone. I only had 3. I handed the first folder to Sarah's father. I handed the second folder to Marcus's wife, Helen, and I dropped the third folder right in front of Sarah. "What is this, Mark?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling, the color draining from her face. "It's a portfolio of your hard work over the last 8 months," I said smoothly. Helen opened hers. I watched as her eyes scanned the first page, a printed screenshot of a highly explicit text exchange between her husband and my wife. She gasped, dropping the folder on the table as if it were on fire. Marcus lunged to grab it, but Helen slapped his hand away. Sarah's father was staring at a photo of his daughter kissing her boss in the lobby of a Marriott. He looked up at me, devastated, confused. Sarah didn't open hers. She was hyperventilating, looking around the room as the realization of her absolute ruin washed over her. "Mark, please," she whispered, "not here." "You invited him here, Sarah," I replied, my voice carrying clearly across the dead silent room. "You wanted everyone together. I'm just honoring your wishes." I took a white envelope from my breast pocket and placed it on top of her black folder. "These are the divorce papers. My lawyer expects to hear from yours by Monday. Also," I looked at Marcus, who was currently being yelled at in a hushed, furious whisper by his crying wife. "Marcus, check your phone."
Right on cue, Marcus's phone buzzed. You see, Marcus and Sarah's company had a very strict policy against executives dating subordinates. It was a massive corporate liability. At the exact moment I started my speech, an automated script I wrote sent an email to the company's head of HR, the CEO, and the corporate ethics hotline. The email contained a curated selection of their communications, specifically the ones where Marcus discussed giving Sarah an unearned bonus and passing over other candidates for her promotion. I didn't stick around for the screaming. I walked out of the restaurant, paid the maitre d' for the meal, and got into an Uber. I had already moved my essentials into a beautiful downtown apartment earlier that day. I took the dog, Cooper, with me. The fallout was biblical. Sarah tried to fight the divorce, but the sheer volume of evidence, combined with her desperation to keep things quiet, meant my lawyer crushed her. I kept the house, which I promptly sold, my entire retirement, and my trust. I gave her a modest payout just to make her go away quickly. Her career? Decimated. HR launched an immediate investigation. Marcus was fired for cause, abuse of power, and misuse of company funds. Because he was fired for cause, he lost his massive severance package. His wife Helen divorced him, taking him to the absolute cleaners. Sarah was quietly asked to resign. Word travels fast in her industry. She had to take a massive step down, working a mid-level job at a tiny agency, struggling to pay rent on a one-bedroom apartment.
It's been 3 years since that night. People ask me if I regret doing it so publicly, if I regret the destruction. The answer is no. I didn't destroy her life. I merely held up a mirror to the choices she made. I was just the architect who handed her the blueprints of her own collapse. Healing took time. Betrayal leaves a mark that doesn't easily wash off. I spent a year in therapy, learning how to trust myself again, learning that her choices were a reflection of her brokenness, not my inadequacy. Today, life is quiet, beautifully quiet. I have a new job that I love, Cooper is snoring at my feet right now, and I'm dating a woman who is kind, transparent, and loyal. If you are listening to this, and you are in the dark place I was, If you just found out your entire world is a lie, breathe. Don't react. Don't give them the satisfaction of your raw pain. Protect yourself. Be smart. Be patient. The best revenge isn't just success. The best revenge is letting the truth do the heavy lifting while you walk away into a better life. Thanks for listening.